Welcome to the Product Analytics PM UX Weekly Sync for June 28th, 2023. Jumping into the agenda, looking back, last week we didn't have any action items, we were async. So moving into sticky items. First is reviewing latest prototype reviewer results. And we're testing usability around the custom dashboard creation flow. Kevin, you want to jump in, talk through the results?
Yeah, so I think like so far the first round of testing kind of showed that we don't have necessarily some usability issue. So that's a good thing. We can keep going with that. Some of the stuff that we've kind of noticed is that some terms like dimension and things like that can be a bit blurry, and it's something that we could iterate on, either on the copy or just simply having like some helpers on the fields. So that's potentially one of the things that I'm thinking about changing for the next round. I know we're thinking about that, James. Then the other thing about kind of user value, I think it's a tricky one to assess with unmoderated testing. So like you can check usability, but desirability is a bit trickier.
Yeah.
So yeah, hard to answer for now. I'd say though, there's still like the general flow seems all right, and I think we should pursue like this direction, keep testing again and again. Yeah, that's my thought right now. I know because you've also seen some of the sessions, so if you have anything to add up to it, or if you have anything to add up to it, if you
that all makes sense to me. Yeah, I agree. Getting user value out of these sessions was like the script wasn't tuned for that, but we definitely tested the usability. I think we went in with the hypothesis or just the assumption that there's value in creating a custom dashboard based on other discussions that we've had and seeing the excitement in the field team and customers as we talk to them about the custom dashboard. So having one is something that is desirable and valuable to customers. Yeah, so that seems like we proved out it's usable in its current flow. We have ideas around iterating and scoping down though. And yeah, I think you mentioned, or I saw a comment from last week's that from a technical perspective, building what we have is viable, especially removing some of the things that we talked about, removing and choosing existing visualizations, safe visualizations. So that's exciting. And then as far as iteration, Kevin, you have voice over yours.
Yeah, I'm thinking that in terms of iteration, we should kind of raise the level of fidelity. Because right now it's pretty low fidelity. Like you could not go through the different drop downs and everything. So I think like if we kind of raise this level, then we'll have people a bit more closer to what the real flow is, and this is potentially where we're going to start seeing some pain points or not. But I assume that we'll get some questions doing so. So to me, yeah, that's one of the things that we should do. So potentially like having drop downs, prototype, not all of the choices being reflected, but just kind of like moving, like keeping the idea of having people creating a single stat visualization with monthly active users, but just showing all of the drop down content and start kind of getting feedback on that.
If we iterate and remove the visualization creation part of it and remove the data sources where it's just you're picking a project to get data out of and then picking a pre-built visualization, we only have one drop down at that point, I think, right?
If we remove creating a visualization from scratch, you mean?
Yeah, because that if we remove that from the flow and we say, hey, visualization designer is its own big ball of wax. There were problems with what does a dimension mean and other parts that are part of that flow anyway. So a custom dashboard is I can rearrange basically the default dashboards and choose only the panels I want on them. And that's our first step into custom dashboard creation. Picking a saved visualization seems like the step of adding. So that would be, I think at that point, the only drop down.
It would be definitely simplifying it. So I guess in the end is like, do longer term we feel that it should be decorrelated from the flow, yes or no? And if yes, then yes, we could simplify it, go with like some predefined example of visualization and then move the visualization designer outside of this flow. Or if we feel that they should be tied together in the future, then I'd say we should keep testing with visualization designer as part of the custom dashboard flow.
I think they should, but I don't think that we have to do that now. If we have to go, like, we shouldn't stop building the dashboard designer. Let's get the dashboard designer out there, let users play with it, and that'll give us more information about the usability of that anyway. And then go fix the visualization designer. Because if we go into, and if I edit a custom dashboard today, oh, too many screens, guys. I don't have no idea what that looks like on your side.
Yeah, we've got this is where the TV is helpful.
It would give me the list of visualizations there
Yeah,
that are already pre-built.
Yeah, if you go to a new dashboard, it should work. This is very in progress.
Yeah.
If you go back to the listing and then select new dashboard, you'll see the list there.
Okay.
So on one hand, I'm just trying to understand like what we're trying to trade off here. Like we want to go higher fidelity so that we can understand what the user's thinking in terms of having more choice in terms of picking existing visualizations, right?
Mhm.
But then James is suggesting of simplifying the number of dropdowns they would see. Because I guess on one hand, we're just trying to figure out what to show them. Like, I guess we eventually want to bring the visualization designer as part of the experience when they want to add something new, but we're just trying to simplify the experience for purposes of like going through these user interviews. Am I understanding like the problems?
Yeah, so I think it'd be helpful to share the flow. So today, this is what we tested users with, of choosing a data source, which we don't support today, and building a visualization as the first step. What I'm saying is, let's, instead of say DB or file here, just say pick the project that you want data from. On step 2, it's pick the visualization out of the existing visualization list that you want to start with. And then name it and give it a description and go to the dashboard after you hit save. Where it's a very simple 3-step flow, and you've successfully created your custom dashboard, and then you can edit it and add more visualizations on that screen. That is our MVC for dashboard creation. Separately, let's go figure out what dimensions should be called and all of the other things that have come up around the visualization designer, because we can launch that as its own feature where you explore data and then save a visualization and add it here. Once that flow we feel good about the usability of, we can put that back into the dashboard creation. But we don't have to wait to release dashboard creation and test it with this other piece, is what I'm saying. Let's release it as it can be, with saved visualizations as the only panel that you can add to the dashboard.
Okay, so effectively build two different, well, I mean, they're two separate workflows anyways, but that allows us to push out dashboard designer sooner and then ideally marry it back together once we've made changes to whether we add helpers or explain things better or rethink the nomenclature for the visualization designer as far as dimensions and measures are concerned, and then bring that back into the dashboard designer experience.
Yeah, because we can go back and say visualization designer is its own flow. You don't build a visualization as part of the dashboard creation, which is kind of how it stands today.
Right.
You do that separately, save it, and then go back into an existing one, or pick it then out of the saved list when you're creating a new dashboard. I think that flow is going to be the fastest to get us out to customers, and we can test the usability with a higher fidelity concept. I'm suggesting that we scope down the way that's in that concept to create a new dashboard, custom name, custom description, picking from saved visualizations that you can edit, as opposed to default dashboards that are just very static in nature.
The step to pick a visualization title and description, that's not longer going to be applicable if you're picking from a predefined list of visualizations, because they're already going to have their built-in titles. So you could edit the panel title, but at that stage you're getting into the dashboard editor again. Another thought that I have on this is, if we're changing the flow to allow users to pick from the built-in visualization list, then I feel like it would make sense for them already when defining a dashboard to pick from multiple. Because else it feels like an unnecessary second step for them to view the dashboard again, view the editor, and then start adding more visualizations. When it's like, if I'm creating a dashboard as a user, I would just kind of like to, pick the stuff that I really want from the start. Especially if we don't need that third step of defining the names.
I think the third step was the overall dashboard, the name and description of it, not of the individual visualizations.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood that.
No, no worries.
Okay, so then the second step could still be edited to add multiple, we could have a multi-select.
Okay. The current flow has that as the last step in the process, where you can save your dashboard and go to it, or add another visualization and it takes you back to step 2. So you're saying step 2 then becomes the loop, and step 3 is really the final. Once you're happy with the visualizations you have, continue to save. Kevin, what do you think about that?
I'm thinking that I think we can do this if we just follow this path. I think we're kind of branching into another one, and we'll have to again do at least 1 or 2 outside of that, because it's kind of a different. It's the same flow, but the second step is actually quite critical. So then if we're changing it, it's a big piece of the flow that we're changing. So then maybe we'll see how that goes in terms of testing. But I assume that because we're changing this part, we might uncover new things that will lead us to potentially do another round of testing, which is fine. I think it's just something that we should consider. Because we're changing this core part of the flow, it's almost as if not that we're restarting from 0, but it's a big change. So then therefore we might be in for another 2 extra. That's what I would say. Which again, fast. I'm saying 2 extra. If we commit to that, I can definitely have something fleshed out by the end of the week. Iterate on the tasks that we give people into our moderated setting, and then launch it. Have the results maybe either earlier next week, and then keep iterating like that. So it's also it's fine that way. It's not going to take a lot of time as well, I assume. So, but it's just that it's something that we need to factor in of okay, if we want to change that direction, it's all right, but let's at least make 1 or 2 extra. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, it seems reasonable. And we don't have external customers on yet anyway. We won't for another week or 2 anyway. So we're not going to get that live customer feedback any sooner if we don't do the testing and move straight to build. So it seems reasonable to do another round of user testing with that reduced flow, and then flip so that adding additional visualizations happens on step 2. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll note that down. But yeah, this is really where having some kind of job to be done research nailed out would kind of help us of okay, does it need to be really trimmed down, as in we surface templates and stuff to let them pick, or should they be able to create it themselves? So yeah, that's
And I think long term, yeah, they do need to be able to create themselves, but I don't think we have to wait to release the feature to flesh that part out. Is what I'm driving at, is we can release dashboard creation as this is the first step in that flow. You can build a dashboard and put existing visualizations on it. That's already part of the core workflow. Someone's probably going to do that. Then we want to give them, hey, I want to go design my own visualization. I just want, this number of events, or just see the events over time, or whatever it might be. Let's tackle that problem next, and then we can work it back into that job to be done if I need just the data I care about on a dashboard. Cool. Awesome. That was good discussion. Thanks, y'all.
Because I think engineering wise too, and Jan can correct me because I'm probably wrong, but that's how we were thinking about it from just an iterative standpoint of you create the dashboard, it is more restrictive because you can only add existing visualizations, but then eventually we'll give you that way to create a custom one. And then, yeah, that will kind of modify the job to be done back with the dashboard designer. But ultimately, we'd want to be able to just say, yeah, if you're creating a dashboard, you can just create the visualization, at least the first one there, because I think people who are most interested in creating a custom dashboard will have already a question in mind, which they're trying to match the visualization for, which probably doesn't exist, right? But at least this is a way to give you more than creating a dashboard that has nothing at all, and then having to like have a separate flow to add existing visualizations.
Yeah, the first iteration of going from a new dashboard or a custom dashboard designer to the visualization designer and then back has actually just been merged.
Okay.
It's on staging. But we still have the open question about, like, I feel like I would be more comfortable if we first ship the dashboard designer and then ship the visualization designer. So we may end up hiding that behind like a feature flag until we have the visualization a bit more figured out. But functionally, it's there. The flow works really nicely because, like you said, I feel like if I'm creating a dashboard, yeah, I want to like, you know, play around with this and create a new visualization. It's also slow to then immediately come back and be able to add it. But yeah, how we release that is still an open question.
Well, I think the timing out works out nicely then if it's going to require additional rounds of testing as well, because maybe we might find something along the way and then we can adjust it before users get a hold of it.
But it also seems like we're going to have to like feedback entry points, because on the one hand, we're working on our feature flagged dashboard and visualization designer. And then we're also testing with users like the onboarding process, basically for creating like a dashboard with the other flow. So we're kind of getting like, yeah, like different feedback from different implementations. So that's also actually a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. So I think we can skip over next validation since we have another round of this, and we'll pick that up next week in the interest of moving forward in the agenda. I updated the existing planning issues with that new design section that got merged into the planning issue template. Kevin and Dennis, if you could take a look at the 16.3 issue and fill in any design work or research work. When I say filled in, I just dropped in the template. I didn't actually add any issues. So lazy product manager over here.
Well, lazy EM right now because I'm in infra help, but it'll eventually get filled out, if not last minute, like 16.2 was.
All good, man.
Fair warning.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then I wanted to talk through, I started a user story mapping issue around the usage quota billing flows. So I wanted to take a quick look at that with the time that we have left before I introduce it to the team. And we'll get some good team feedback too. Yay for the TV. So we did, is the view okay for you guys?
One more step on the magnification would be helpful.
Yeah,
loud. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what I want to do is engage with the team in building out the user story map for users who want to see their usage of product analytics. We're circling in on, like, there's going to be billing based on some sort of consumable, sort of consumption-based pricing or usage-based pricing. What that actually is and the price of it, TBD. Sorting through that now. I have a review with Sam today around that topic. But regardless of how we bill and what we bill on, they're going to want to see how many of that thing have I done this month and what's my bill looking like today? What's it projecting like into the end of the month? Or, you know, how much have I spent last month? How does this month compare? They want to start to answer questions like that and understand, you know, what do I need to be budgeting for the rest of the month, the rest of the quarter, the rest of the year. So wanted to get the team involved with solving for that problem and using the user story map to do that. And so I created a mural board. I'll link to it in here with a problem to solve, and wanted to kind of check with y'all and make sure that the problem makes sense. I don't know that there's any constraints that we have to deal with, but we should fill those in. And some considerations are just that this initial use case is for staff users only connecting to the shared event cluster. We know based on experience with self-managed customers and runners that they want to see consumption of their own things that they're hosting at some point, just so they have a way to compare what the bill is on the compute side to what GitLab is saying they're using, so they can start to equate those things together. But that's outside of the scope of our first pass at this. And then I recorded a quick video and uploaded it as far as actually going through and creating the tasks and dropping them in, kind of the first step of what are all the tasks that someone would do to solve for this problem. So wanted to get feedback from y'all about this. We can do it live for a couple of minutes. I have a hard stop in a couple of minutes, or we can do it async in the issue. And once we're happy, then I was going to introduce it to the team and ask everybody to jump in and start making those tasks. And then we'll go through and collect them and group them into logical steps. And then we can start to slice out what is the release plan for this feature, as it's one of the next big features that I think we need to build in advance of general availability and actually charging users for this functionality.
I can't see the agenda. How many more points do we have? I mean, I'm happy to review it sync as well.
This is it. The last one can be async.
Okay. I mean, we can spend some,
Yeah.
the last few minutes then.
Yeah.
If you want. Cool, let's do it. So is it like walking us through the mural board, or is it just like reviewing? Or
I think let's start with the problem to solve.
Yeah.
Of problem analytics users connecting to the managed event cluster will be charged something based on usage volume of something being sent to our managed cluster. So the user story for them is, as the person who writes the check, I want to see my team's usage of product analytics, and team is multiple teams potentially within the group. So I can ensure we're getting value out of that investment. So
yeah, I think that.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's an interesting user story, because I think ultimately what customers will want out of it is organizational billing, so that they can see of all the different projects. Like, I guess I asked the question, like, where does the usage and billing information appear? Because right now we define everything at the project level, right? For organizations, they probably want to see, okay, I have maybe 3 projects that are collecting events. Like, what's an easy way to see like the distribution of that? But I think from a first iteration, I guess the question to ask is, like, for the first iteration, do we just surface information only at the project level for now, and then it's a subsequent follow-up for being able to see like how much your group or subgroups are using all of it? Or how do we even bill based on that? Actually, is another thing. Can a customer buy 5 million events, and then all their groups are allowed to just use as much of that as possible? Or do we restrict it, or do they buy it for their project? Which would actually be a very important question to ask. As I imagine Zora, or whatever we use for billing, will have to be set up in that way.
Yeah, it's like tangent, but like, did you connect James with I think fulfillment, because they were working on storage management and something else, and as a result of that, there was a usage quota page built, I think, at the group level, where you could see the resources used by your projects, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, I'm just saying that because if then we're going to start charging people for events, sorry, that's probably where it should be, because this is where we have it from a like navigation perspective at GitLab. But that's already going into the solution or slash.
So this already helps me with one of the instructions needs to be, there's a lot of questions that we don't know the answers to. We don't need to know the answers for this step of list out all the possible tasks. Assume the answer is yes to all of them, and let's flesh out the task for all of them, because we don't have to start restricting ourselves yet. Let's go really, really wide first, and then we'll figure out what we actually need to build, and we can chop things out. Like, maybe we don't need this at the project level, but let's assume it just has to be everywhere, and that everything is true. We account for all the different use cases, and then we can figure out the trade-offs. My next coffee chat is with Tatiana, and that's one of the topics is, tell me about what Zora billing looked like today.
Yeah, I mean, it's also be good to understand what fulfillment, how does that work even currently with CI minutes? Do you buy that? I'm assuming at the account level, so like the organizational level, and then because that will help us, because obviously on the engineering side or infra side of things, like, we're going to have to be able to track how many events or users you're using and reconcile that against some type of quota. so that, we'll have to be aware, like, other projects can eat part of this quota, so that whenever we actually have the backend API, like, that's reconciling all of this, that we, don't mess up and say, oh, if we're basing it on number of events or number of users, that we're not double counting or not counting correctly, such that, sorry, like, if you pay for 100 users on your application to run analytics, for example, and we're accounting 100 only on a per project basis, then we're actually allowing them to use more than they've actually paid for. So
I will say that the model that we're going to propose is that it's not pre-buy, or it's not a hard stop when you get to the end of your quota, which is the way that CI minutes mostly works today. Instead, it'll be consumption based. So that could be some of the task is, I want to set a threshold. I want to set a hard stop. And then there's other competitors out there who say, once you get up to the maximum of your current plan level, that you just have a hard stop. And in fact, I read one page today, as I was looking at some pricing stuff about, then we restrict access to your account. So you can't even get to your data once you've sent too many events. Like, whoa. It's like, that's not very user friendly. Hold on. So
we're already at time, so
yeah.
Sounded like that could have been a meeting in itself, so maybe we but I guess we can go async and then
drop some questions in there. I just added a question section so that we can add them, and I'll update the instructions to better reflect, hey, there's a lot of unknowns. Just assume, like, write task for unknowns, assuming that they're true, or that that's a thing that we want to go build, and we'll figure out if we can and if we should go build it later. But let's get everything out there to start, so we can make the trade-offs of those things, knowing that they're a possibility.
Yeah, and the other half of that too is just, like, understand what questions to ask when we actually meet with fulfillment in terms of what's possible and what's not. So that's going to be important. Like, maybe group level is a requirement, because billing it on a finer level will be too much to manage as far as a billing and fulfillment side of things.
Yeah, I definitely feel going the usage route simplifies this a lot, because then we're not dealing with a shared budget across namespaces and projects and subgroups, and managing that would have been its own giant tool.
Tell me about it, buddy.
I feel like would be possible on per project, but yeah, definitely good to check in with what we currently offer. Is this viable? Technically, I feel like it is, but
I mean, how many other companies provide usage-based, like, billing and pricing that use our backend billing system to do that? So I assume that our provider provides that ability. Our interface with that could need some work. So maybe we'll get some experience with that part of the stack as well. Who knows? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it'll just also depend on fulfillment. I know they're, well, like every other group, at capacity.
Aren't we all?
Like, how much more work is involved from either our side or theirs, but
I know from memory that a lot of their issues though stem from the fact that they're working with existing, like, features, and trying to group that together and make the billing more obvious and visible, where we're starting from fresh, so we have a cleaner playing field to work with.
Yeah, it's just more of a reconciliation standpoint. It's like, I don't know how Zora works at all, but if you start buying pack SKUs on a per project basis, is it easy to reconcile that from the billing perspective at the group level, so that we can surface that information back to them? Because there's going to be someone that's going to be asking the question, okay, I've got 30 engineering, or they're overtime, 30 engineering teams, and they're all using all this stuff. I want to know how much the entire company is paying for the service. But yeah, that's one of the questions we can figure out. But
Those sound like excellent tasks to add. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
I gotta bounce.
I remember them when I actually get my laptop back.
Great discussion. Thank you. Cheers.